Good morning, good evening, and keep it tight. Welcome to Liquidmatrix Security Digest Hacker Radio Podcast, episode 0x78. Here with myself are Dave Lewis, go figure, Matt Johansson, and James Arlen on the Wheels of Steel. I should point out that this show does not represent the thoughts, intentions, plans, or strategies for world domination of our employers, ex-girlfriends, wives, belly button lint, or the militant wing of the Girl Guides. It is solely our personal opinions. We make no guarantees to the accuracy, validity, sobriety, relevance, or importance of anything we say or do here. My portion of this podcast has been brought to you by ranting at software companies. How's it going, guys?
Hi.
Yeehaw.
Wait.
I should put a caveat on that. I was trying to get my son's Minecraft working so he could game with his friend online, and it is nigh impossible to find the setting to allow that so that he can interact with his friends online. I'm
because security
locked it down, but wow, where is it?
Security, Dave. It's about security.
Ranty McRant pants. There we go.
Just wait, your kids grow up and you stop monitoring their internet usage.
Well, you know what? I actually have stopped monitoring it, but I have controls in place for safety so that they don't do derpy things, but I don't actually look at what they're doing.
Dude, wait till your kid buys a motorcycle.
Why do you want to hurt me so badly?
That's
Last
my
time
life.
we did a podcast, I don't think any of our kids were old enough to ride motorcycles. So, well, I guess not the last time. I missed last week, but last time I was on a podcast with you guys, no one had a offspring old enough to ride a motorcycle.
That is true, yes. And to be fair, I did send the invite to his wrong email last week.
My oldest is 33, Matt. She's been able to ride a motorcycle forever.
Oh, okay.
My oldest that I know about is 16.
Well, that's funny. Not the good kind of funny.
Well, there's always that mystery. You never know.
Do you really think that all the people, approximately 27 for the last episode, who remember that we exist, are tuning in to hear about our lives? Or do you think they'd like to hear some news?
They probably want to hear some news. And oddly enough, we did have a lot of traction on the YouTube episode.
I know, it's kind of cool. So, hey, Matt, you haven't been here in literally 2 years. Would you do us all a favor and kick it off?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I was saying this before we hit record. The dopamine floweth. I'm very, very excited to see you guys and be here. Funny thing, I kept doing the news, just not with you guys. So,
and it's an excellent performance that you got going there. Why don't you tell folks more about it in case they haven't been paying attention?
Yeah, we included it in the show notes. I was going to hit it at the end, but yeah, I started a newsletter called Vulnerable You. We talk a lot about cybersecurity news, and we also talk about the intersection of tech, working in cybersecurity, and mental health, which I feel like is not talked about enough. And so I decided I was going to be the person that started talking more about that. And yes, I know I've had these conversations with the, I was going to say 3 of us in the past. And so, yeah, I now just do it more publicly. So
I think the fun part, though, Matt, is in 2008, you were collecting news stories and helping publish the news summary on Liquidmatrix.
Yeah.
It's 2024. So in all of that time, you've expanded your career to include doing it by yourself instead of doing it with other people.
I've gained 0 new skills, and yeah, I did an AMA on my Instagram this past week, which for some reason a lot of people started following recently. So if you're coming from that, thank you. But I did an AMA, and I said, they were like, oh, someone asked something about like what made me start doing all this stuff, and I was like, start. I've been doing this since 2008. There's just more of you now. Like, yeah, for those of you who don't know, I used to part-time under the moniker the Liquidmatrix Security Intern on our blog and collect the daily news links. So I've been doing this a long time.
It's pretty awesome.
Okay,
actually.
Should we talk about the news story that I gathered for this episode today?
That would
yes,
be an
please.
idea.
Have you guys seen all the stuff going on with Snowflake?
Oh my God!
I posted your Insta thing to my security team where I work to talk about it.
Yeah.
So yes, I did hear about it from you.
Cool. So it turns out the Insta thing, the video that I made on it was based off of, and I try to not do breaking news for this very reason, because what I was talking about was based off of like information on the fly, right? And so turns out I was missing some pieces of the puzzle, but I will say, okay, let me pause. Let's give everyone a rundown of what's going on. There was a Ticketmaster breach that came out. That was the first thing that we saw by the very popular data leakers known as shiny hunters, right? And they were on breach forums or whatever. I very rarely take something that goes onto breach forums and like post about it because like 80% noise, right? But shiny hunters, fairly reputable, fairly popular. And so of course antennas went up. People started verifying that data, right? Okay, this looks like legit Ticketmaster data. Then the next day, they came out and said that they had Santander, a very large bank in South America, I believe, that they had their data breach data from the same shiny hunters, from the same account being leaked. And so, okay, now Spidey senses are really tingling, and this is where I started to like really hop on and start to make some content about it. Then there was some chatter with the threat actor that said, hey, these are both related. These are both like it's the same data breach. They're using an MSP, and the MSP is compromised. Managed service provider is compromised. So I put out a very speculative piece of content, and I said that, hey, I'm speculating here, but if they're related and it's MSP, there's probably more. If companies that large are using this service provider, it's probably a very large service provider. And so I don't think we're done with this. The very next day, it came out and said, hey, it was Snowflake. And this vendor came out, what's their name? Hudson Rock? I don't know. Some security vendor came out with a thing that they were talking to someone in Telegram and said, hey, it was Snowflake. We breached Snowflake. We've got 400 other vendors lined up that we're going to be leaking data from, right? So that's the piece that you're talking about, Jamie. Well, that's when I put out that piece of content. Well, turns out Snowflake not very happy with this. They went and hired CrowdStrike and Mandiant. They said not just Mandiant, we're going to bring in CrowdStrike as well. They hired both of them. So kudos. They said they went and wrote the fat check, and two of them, and they came in and said, hey, we don't see any evidence of a breach here, right? So they came out and said, hey, we're not breached, and their lawyers went and sent nasty grams to the security vendor who wrote the blog post that said they were breached. That all being said, it seems like, and there was another one today, another leak again today that I'll come up with in a sec. Again, a Snowflake customer. So it seems like Snowflake itself may not be breached, right? Because of everything that we just went through. But it seems like their customers have a big old bullseye on their head. And so I saw some content around this that basically said like, hey, yeah, maybe we handed you a jar of Crisco and a firearm, but we're not at fault for the hole in your foot. Is some of the memes that I saw going around on this one. So I'm really interested in your guys' take on this.
I really want to hear about what you're doing recreationally with firearms and Crisco.
No, there are some images I can't get out of my head, and that's right
Listen,
up there.
All right. All right.
From my perspective, I'm wondering if this is an access control issue from a password protection type thing. Because if they're showing they're not breached, but the data is getting out there, is it possible that these accounts were just protected with simple usernames and passwords, as an example? And that's one of the things that I've heard going around with other folks, that is the potential venue. But the thing is, these are early days. We don't have enough to say. And with any data breach, as we all know, that the people that are talking about the data breach are usually the people that know the least about it. And I would definitely put myself at the bottom of the list of people that know things.
I think that one of the things that's killer, though, that is not being talked about in any of the coverage that I've seen is, as a cloud service provider, it's really hard to tell if what your customers appear to be doing is what they're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. Understanding the behavior of your customer's application is actually really difficult to do if you're just looking at the telemetry that's coming off of it. It's only by working with the customer that you can understand this is a normal usage, this is not a normal usage. Maybe the machine called Helium goes and grabs a copy of your entire Postgres database once a day because that's its entire job. Or maybe the machine called Helium is some dude who's just taking your shit. there's no real way to tell what's normal and what's not normal. And
Well,
so
and
if
that's
it's, if it's a compromised service account, good luck chasing it down.
and that's incredibly fair. I worked at a company many years ago where we had a database backup that would happen every Friday, and it would send all the data over to the server in Shenzhen, China. And I was at work. I think I'd been there about 2 weeks. And I said, "Oh, okay. Where's this office in Shenzhen?" And they said, "We don't have an office in Shenzhen." And it turned out this backup had been going for 8 years.
Oops.
Yep. Yeah. So it looked like a normal, and people, it had been going so long that people just assumed it was a database backup. It was
Yeah,
dumping everything out the front door.
Jamie, to your point, I brought up the same thing when I first put out the some of the content around the Ticketmaster breach before we even knew that there was a second or a third or 400 more. Uh, I said, hey, we don't have a lot of details on this one, but I'd put money on that this is stolen creds, right? Like this just smells like a compromised account. Doesn't smell like ransomware. They haven't had an impact. They haven't had like service disruption, whatever. I was like, this just smells like stolen creds. I'll bet on that, right? And then it came out. I was like, oh, turns out I was right, but not stolen creds for Ticketmaster, stolen creds for their Snowflake account, right? Is what things are pointing to. So I don't think we've heard the last of this one yet.
Well,
I
mean,
understand.
I do want to offer a solution for anyone out there. If you want to store your passwords in a secure format, I strongly recommend the secure format storage tool of choice. Not many people know how to read an 800K dual density Mac floppy. And
Why do you have a 3D printed save icon?
I keep forgetting that you're like 12, Matt. I'm sorry.
To be fair, I am old enough to have used one of those legitimately.
Yeah.
I had to install Oregon Trail with like a dozen of them. Please insert disk 2.
Oregon Trail fit
But
on
then you
one
died of
floppy.
dysentery.
It's Windows 95 that took 13.
Yeah. Okay. I had that too.
I think one of the things that needs to be said a little more often as we go through these breach stories is, despite whatever mistake was made or whatever oversight occurred, there's still a pile of security operations teams running around working their tails off right now. And I want to make sure that we remember that fundamental point. The attacker only needs to be right once. The security team has to be right every damn time. And so hats off to all of those working hard to figure out what the heck went on.
Hug ops.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't miss being on the receiving end of those sort of things. Those were not fun days.
No, they were not. Do you want to hear about something fun, though?
Oh, always.
Okay. So here's the fun thing. Turns out that the Canadian government agency that keeps an eye on disinformation, misinformation, that kind of stuff, it's called NSICOP, National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, produced a 94-page report on enumerating all of the ways that there are attempts to meddle in the political landscape in Canada. And the response from the members of parliament is, we don't believe you, because the report basically says you're a bunch of witting or semi-witting participants in this, which is pretty much exactly how I put most interactions with Parliament and foreign adversaries. Just entertaining that it all got written down. The nice part is it's public and you can read all about it. And it follows, the tail end of the story follows up with, should we let Parliament manage themselves and the risks that they present to the rest of the country? And that's a real good question for any democracy.
Well, and then you spin it and look at things like Shared Services Canada, where all the different agencies were pulled together under a single umbrella. They took over all of the infrastructure, but they didn't get any added budget. So, yeah, the bad things are going to happen. They don't have, it's just a lather, rinse, repeat of keep things running the way they were, just under a single banner instead of 47 of them.
Sounds normal.
Wait, witting or unwitting participant in disinformation from foreign adversaries, isn't that just called Facebook?
would say most social media sites without naming any particular. Hashtag just saying.
That's good water.
Okay.
Is
Yeah. So
is there a
there's
clock app in the room? I hear.
no, that's my dog snoring, actually.
Oh, okay.
Dave, your turn.
All right. So one of the things that's always frustrated me is when it comes to ransomware, not only that it keeps happening, because ransomware is fundamentally the debt collector for all the security debt an organization has accumulated. But nowadays it's even worse because organizations are finding that when they get hit more than once with it. So they, pay to get their data unencrypted, but then the threat actor will then turn around and then sell it or sell it back to them saying, oh, okay, well, now you got to pay to sell it back or we'll release it again. A Chinese shopping platform called PandaBuy were recently compromised, and the data they paid for getting the keys to get the data back, but then the threat actor then turned around and started extorting them to try and get them to pay again. And this is one of the reasons that I personally have never been a fan of paying the ransoms. The problem here is I don't work for PandaBuy, so their requirements and their risk levels are very different. So organizations out there are going to have different responses. Some will pay it because it makes the most sense, because a lot of these platforms, when they get compromised, if they're a small enough company, it could literally be an extinction level event for them if they're not able to recover. And this is one of those frustrating things. So while I can sit there and tub thump of saying don't pay the ransom, it's not always an option for organizations out there. What do you guys think?
Well, I know the U.S. government is even discussing paying the ransom illegal, and stopping it at like a Federal Reserve level of like, hey, our currency cannot be used to like go do this, right? And crypto type things cannot be used and backstopped in this way. So super interesting there. I think this was like pretty evident we couldn't have asked for a better case study than Vegas last summer, right? You had MGM and Caesars hit by the same threat actor in the same month with ransomware. One paid the ransom and one didn't. And you can kind of watch what the next couple of weeks of both of their lives looked like.
Yeah.
It's super interesting, but it also doesn't always work out like that. So it's a really good case study, but a lot of times people pay these ransoms and you are dealing with criminals, right? So it's like they say thank you very much for the Bitcoin and stop answering the phone.
It's almost like they don't know the definition of the word racketeering.
And there's a great example of the University of Dusseldorf a few years ago where they got compromised, and they did end up getting the keys back because, unfortunately, as a result of their compromise, a woman actually died because she couldn't be admitted to the hospital. Now, what they did was the attackers were like, oh, we didn't know it was a hospital. We feel bad. Here are the keys. But it literally took them months upon months to decrypt any of the data. So fundamentally, even though they got the keys, didn't work as advertised. So a lot of this code is not well written to be entirely fair. And so this was another problem that'll crop up too.
Yeah, I think the continuing saga of the hack for the city government where I live, the continuing saga of it right now is that they're refusing to release how much they paid when they paid the ransom. And I'm looking at my property tax bill and I'm going, wait, what? You paid the ransom. And near as anybody can tell from the outside, it was a cred breach. And it was probably a high level admin person in IT who got tired of having to look at their extra 6 digits and said, yeah, I'm going to put myself in the I'm good to go group. And all the city services were impacted because they're all connected to the same Active Directory. And it's a rat hole of fundamental information hygiene. Like, do your backups, have an offline backup that can't be corrupted. Like, none of this stuff is particularly difficult. It's just that you have to be deliberate and precise about it.
And then when you flip it on its head and play devil's advocate, a lot of these organizations don't have the talent on staff that they need in order to have a solid program because they can't afford to pay the salaries that other shops can do.
The city manager of the city of Hamilton said publicly that the city of Hamilton has absolute world-class cybersecurity.
And to be fair, we did talk about this last week. Now, who were those people that they had on staff that were taking care of this? Or we
Uh,
don't know.
well, one of them was a Nazi sympathizer.
Oh,
So,
really? Oh, I didn't know that.
oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
Oh, you're gonna
tricky.
have a bucket of fun when you go and look at that story.
Oh, sweet mercy.
Exactly. So
And
before we started the recording, well, actually, before Matt even showed up for the recording, Matt was complaining about browsers because this tool that Dave decided we're going to use to do the recording basically requires Chrome. Matt
it does.
had a real
Yeah.
conniption. He was yelling, ranting, and screaming in the Signal channel that we share.
It was the weeping
And
that got me.
yeah, it's the real question. So Matt, you hate Chrome. It's all spyware. Everything's spyware. What's the point, Matt? Why are we even on the internet, Matt?
I don't know. Bring back that floppy real quick. Let's turn the clock back. Yeah, you also saw. I don't know if you saw the headline that that Google relieved their head of privacy of duty and announced that they're not going to backfill the role either.
I mean, it's not as bad as Microsoft Recall, but it's also definitely not
Hey,
good.
that's my briefly. So yeah,
Sorry.
no, it's fine. Yes, I kind of went on a kick a little while ago, and I think Google does make a very good browser. I used it for many years, but when push comes to shove, what's under the hood and what's phoning back home, I decided to lose a bit of functionality for the sake. And honestly, sometimes you're sacrificing a bit of security. Google has a world class security team, right? I worked somewhere once that tried to put out a secure browser. It didn't go well. Um, it's
It's
hard
not
to stay
perfect.
on. Yeah, it's hard to stay on top of these things, and Google does. But
Mhm.
security and privacy are not always the same thing, right? And oftentimes they're at odds.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I decided to kind of get off of as much of the Google stuff on my physical device as possible. So,
And the
So the
one thing that
point
kills me,
is try.
your personal threat model is the point, right? I had some things come up in my life that shifted my personal threat model in the privacy direction, and so that's I think the point is, hey, like we already kind of like wink wink nudge nudge made fun of TikTok earlier, and I am a user and content creator on TikTok, and people look at me and go, how the hell are you in cybersecurity and talking about privacy and spying? And so that's like what my content is about too. And they're like, how the hell are you on this app talking about that? I said, well, my personal threat model says that like I can go ahead and use this app like for whatever it is that they're doing, right? And I'm, antennas up and spidey senses up on news information that I'm getting via that app because of what money is behind it. But
mhm.
I still find it as a valuable platform for me to try to share the information that I share.
And that's fair. It's a very large audience, so I get it. I mean, it makes sense. But yeah, you'd have to do that personal balancing as to what's going to make the most sense for you. And the one thing that I always kills me is like with privacy being left by the wayside, privacy is a business driver. So companies are that get behind and push privacy are actually doing themselves a service because they're building trust with their customer base. So
I mean, look at Apple. Apple's got billboards that just say the word privacy now. That's how
yeah.
much of a driver it is for them.
And it's just the more organizations that push that, I mean, I'm more apt to lean towards that way because, I don't have legions of fans like you do. But, privacy is an absolute business driver. And that's one thing that I get a little bit frustrated when companies step away from it.
Let's do a wait. Hold on. I'm just going to do a quick Twitter follower comparison between the two. Oh yeah, you have way more than me. Cool.
Well, yeah, but I haven't written anything there in almost 2 years.
Wait, what's this thing here? Twitter? Is
Twitter,
that what you're
you
calling it?
remember back when we were young?
That's how I met you. I can't get rid of it. It's how I found my people.
And
I
to
feel
be fair, that is exactly what it was fantastic for in the early days because I met so many folks in this industry through that platform.
It's still
Now
now
happening.
it's
You all
a
just
dumpster
left.
fire.
now it's the porn delivery network, so that's nice. Getting on to a topic that's more history and less Twitter. We got a mailbag letter showed up. Turns out we didn't ever close the mailbox, and people have been sending us mail for years now, so it's going to take a while to work through it. This one starts with "Ahoy there." That's an odd start. First-time mailer, long-time listener. I see that you've got the skull thing going on. Can I ask you about where the crossbones went? Inquiring minds want to know. Dave, since you were there when
never were crossbones. So this logo was originally designed by my wife back in 2006, I think it was, or 2005. And it was supposed to be a intersection between the alien from Space Invaders and a skull. So this was her interpretation of it, and it just stuck. So yeah, there never was a crossbones for this one.
Well, sorry about that, Pirate Steve. There's the answer to your mailbag request, dated sometime during the pandemic. Sorry about that, man.
Oh, that's why
gets us
that's
to
why the ahoy they got off land. They were like, oh, let's social distance and take to the high seas.
that's yeah. Also, I was not allowed to buy a sailboat, or I would have been there too. That gets us to the end of the part of the show where we have the long conversations. We're supposed to do this part briefly, and it never works out that way. I'm going to start. Linking back to media.defcon.org. Go back and watch some of the old stuff. It's still so valid, it actually hurts. I was trying to make a point about PCI DSS 4.0, and I needed to reach back to the PCI panels, which were, back around DEF CON 18, 19, 20, which is like literally 14, 15 years ago now. And Jack Daniels said some stuff. I said some stuff. Alex Hutton said some stuff. All the stuff is exactly the same now. And so if you're relatively new to the industry, there's a lot of material that you can go back and troll through and discover. Just all kinds of stuff.
I think I could give all 4 of my Black Hat talks this year, and not much changes to my content.
From the ones I remember, yeah, absolutely.
It's like, turns out ad networks are still a really good way to deliver malicious code. Turns out Chrome still lets you have crazy permissions and extensions. Turns out a lot of things are still exactly the same.
Yeah, there's no protection for the exocortex that now everyone uses. SCADA is still a hot mess. And high-speed trading stonks.
What a really cool talk. Yeah, if you guys don't know, Jamie gave a talk of security when nanoseconds matter. Super cool. Yeah, I remember that one. I was in the front row.
Yes, you were, and you made faces at me the whole damn time.
And I remember that you were working at, we were working at the same company when you were doing that talk, and the discussion that I had with my boss after that talk was, let's just put it this way, you still owe me.
Dude, I had to work for you.
That's fair. Yeah.
Right,
for all 7 months.
Matt, I stole you briefly earlier, but you can do it again.
Yeah, so briefly, Microsoft put out this tool that was a copy of a, I guess, semi-popular AI tool that came out. The AI tool was called Rewind.ai. Microsoft looked at that and said, great idea, we're going to build it. And so what it does is record and take screenshots of your screen, like every second or every 2 seconds or something like that. It takes a screenshot of everything on your screen and shovels it away into a database, and then trains like an AI algorithm on all the text that it can read off of those screenshots. So you could go to your little local personal AI and say, hey, who did I email yesterday about that thing? I like blah, 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 blah. And like, this would be like, oh, here's the screenshot of that in email, whatever. Honestly, very useful. I'm bullish on AI productivity tools. I get it, right? I'm not like the anti-AI guy, but there's a good way and a bad way to do this. What I talked about earlier about security and privacy. They are recording everything that's on your screen. Okay, so I linked in the show notes a great one by Gossi the dog. I think his name's Kevin Beaumont. Gave like a great FAQ of this feature, he got his hands on the tool, was able to test it. You could search for things like password, and like non-blurred passwords from like AD will pop up. You can, it does block incognito mode of like Edge and Chrome, but no other browsers. So like Firefox incognito mode, that's just fine. Signal chat, not blocked. If you delete an email from your email box, it doesn't matter. It had a screenshot of it. So there's like good and bad ways to go about this. Obviously, I understand like the direction that they're going on productivity, but right now, and there's the shot. The chaser is there's already an open source tool called Total Recall. That is a POC of malware that it's installed on the device that's built purposefully to just go and pull your whole recall screenshot database, which by default goes back 3 months of everything that happened on the screen.
And this is like literally the topic of the 2009 talk that I did about the legal status of the parts of your brain that are outside your brain. Like,
yeah. So, okay. Caveat to not scare everyone. This isn't like on all Windows machines already right now. It's like Windows 11 devices with Copilot Plus have it right now, but I have seen researchers getting this working on Azure VMs. There is nothing special about that hardware, even though they said it's like tied to this NPU chip or something like that. It turns out you can get this recall thing running on anything. So what direction do you think they're going to go in with this feature that they launched? Right, it's going to be on more devices than not, for sure.
And if I'm correct, it is a SQLite database that it pumps this all stuff into, right?
Yeah, I think so. And and that was the other thing when they did a press release on it. They very much told the BBC you need local access to the device in order to access this stuff, which just is false. Like if you got remote malware on this thing, you could get into that database, no problem.
Yeah.
I've seen some people criticizing the criticism of this. Like Rob Graham came out and was like, hey, yo, if you have admin access to a device, you could do this already. And I agree. If a machine is owned, it's owned. But live off the land exists, right? And so if you didn't have to bring your own keylogger and like you could just dump this database without bringing in any new tools, that's just like one fewer indicator of compromise, right? Is what I'm thinking here. You just made things a lot easier.
and they'll probably default to turning it on, like every company seems to want to do with
It
their
is.
AI.
It is absolutely default turned on. I have a video out, and in that video has a screenshot of how to turn it off. And in the link in the show notes, there's a screenshot of how to turn it off.
I've actually spun up a Windows VM just to test this thing out, and we'll be doing that later today.
Well, you and Windows get along so well, Dave.
Oh, I know. About as well as I get along with Minecraft, but that's another story. So, my turn?
Yes.
All right. Well, on the subject of video games, there was a video game that Disney had a little while back. I think it was 2017, called Club Penguin, and they abruptly shut it down. Well, the fans of this particular game were none too plussed about this, and they it was just announced a couple hours ago that some disgruntled parties accessed Disney resources and stole 2.5 gigabits worth of data pertaining to this. So it's one of those things where it's like, yes, I can understand that level of frustration as I try to allow my son to be able to game with his friend online. I will find that setting come hell or high water, and it's probably something really simple is what's killing me. But yeah, this is just another example of the absolute parade of breaches that we're seeing. Like we even dropped that whole section this week because there's so many. It's like it never ending.
As someone who puts out a newsletter, I try to limit the amount of breaches I even include each week. It's like I almost don't want to numb my audience to it. We used to have a whole section of this podcast for it, and at this point, it's just like, come on,
yeah,
what are we doing? So we'll talk about the interesting ones, the big ones, but
but what are we doing? The answer is gratuitous self-promotion time. Dave, where can people see you?
Well, for those of you who saw me in DC this week, great to see you all. But next week, I will be not next week, on the 18th, I will be speaking in Toronto, of all places. I will be speaking at the CIO Toronto Summit downtown on Yonge Street. So I will be there.
That's just crazy talk. Me? I'm looking forward to an appearance in the forest camping because I am completely peopled out. I also may end up having to go to summer camp. Hey, Matt.
Yeah, I think I've got some podcasts scheduled. I'll shout about those on socials. I appear every day on my social channels. Hyper active these days. If you guys don't follow me, Matt
You
J
should
on
follow
most
him.
things. And then yeah, obviously appear in my newsletter that we've talked about. And then I will be at it seems like both, or and even possibly all three parts of summer camp. So I'll be there for the long haul this in a few weeks here.
I will be there as
Oh,
well, actually.
since we're going to have to do that thing where we pay some bills, we've managed to sell some advertising here to, how do you say that word? Vulnerable? Oh, Matt, that's you. Do you want
Wait,
to give us the short on
am
that?
I wait, am I being invoiced? I didn't realize.
How it works, baby.
I've already shilled it enough. Come check it out.
Just click on
Right.
the attachment in the email I sent you.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate it. I've been doing my own thing, my own podcast, my own whatever, but I couldn't say no to the revamp of Liquidmatrix. So
You have not done a podcast in a hot second, sir.
that's true. That's true. That's true. I fell off
It's
around Christmas. So
shorts, Insta
yeah,
doc things.
shorts have been working really well for me. I was paying like you guys do all the editing on this. I was paying an editor to do stuff. It was hard. So I have an all newfound respect for what you do, Jamie. So
What I've been doing for like 12 damn years.
yeah. I tried to do it myself. It took me like 12 damn hours per episode. And I was like, quickly, I'm gonna find someone to do this for me. So
That gets us to the end of the show, which means it's time for the very traditional sign off. Hey, Matt.
oh, Seacrest says, I guess I'm still Seacrest. Did you do a good Seacrest impression without me last week? I hope.
He did
I did.
indeed.
Okay.
And you
Seacrest
should
says,
listen to the damn episode, Matt.
it's not the AI. It's not the AI. It's the AI. Sorry.
There you go, folks.
Right.
Thanks for showing up. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in a week.
Catch you all soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye now.
Bye.